Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Loreweek. Sorry for the delay. We had some technical issues, which we never actually fixed. That's cute. I am, as ever, your host, the Lore Runner. First and foremost, let's jump into show news right at the beginning, as I like to do. We do have Voot version 3 going on right here. This is the final version of the Voot. This is the Ubisoft Voot. Anybody who has not voted on the third and final version of the Ubisoft Voot, please do so. This is the one. This is the one that'll determine it. We've finished our eliminations. We are at the point where the only thing left is the final two options, which, for anybody curious out loud, are Blacklist any Ubisoft game not currently owned, or do not blacklist whatsoever. Those are the two options. I'm going to make a look there. So, final Voot. That'll be up all week, just like the last two were. And we'll decide. I'll announce the results next Loreweek, and we'll see where that's going. I wanted to remind people of something. So, Polemic Day is still on. For those of you who are relatively new to us and don't really know how this works, Polemic Day is the kind of thing where we lift the no controversial topics rule. Now, I want to talk about that briefly, just for those of you not aware of it. I'll talk about it when we get to Polemic Day as well. What is a controversial topic? A controversial topic is anything that, given the target audience, given the time, and given the environment, is something that, here's a link, is something that people will go ring about rather than actually discuss like human beings. That's a controversial topic. That's really what it boils down to. That varies, obviously. You know, I could talk about plenty of things without fear. Usually things with historical context are safe. Obviously, this is 2020, so there's lots of topics today. But yes, Last Jedi, Star Wars The Last Jedi, is a controversial topic. That's not actually a joke. I wanted to bring up two very important things, though. Although the controversial rule will be lifted for Polemic Day, there are two things that do not and have not changed. Change number one. Rule 0 still applies. Rule 0 always applies. That doesn't change just because of the fact that it's Polemic Day, right? Now, if you don't know what Rule 0 is don't be a dick. Yeah, don't be a dick. That's Rule 0. That doesn't change. We're still human beings. We're still going to treat each other like reasonable, decent human beings. That's Rule 0. Never goes away, okay? I want to be very clear about that. Thank you very, very much, Atris, for the sub. Very much appreciate, as always. And thank you very, very much to Zara. I'm going to bow for a little bit longer because you have been supporting me for 3 years. To Zara, welcome to the 3-year club. Holy crap. Thank you very, very, very much, sir. I know, the count, it's crazy. So, Atris and Zara is going to put... God, that's... Yep. This much. So, as usual, if the two of you know where you want those to go, as far as increasing party in future streams, please let me know. Damn, really, Blue Felix? I guess we're getting there. I guess we're at the point where the 3-year mark is coming up. Holy crap. Random stabbings are totally cool, as long as you're not a dick about it. Anyways, Rule 0 still applies. Don't be a dick. Rule 2 is... I always retain executive veto. If you decide to pop in and say, hey, Lore, I would like to know your thoughts on something, and I decide that I don't want to answer that, then I have the right to executive veto that. Very, very simple, right? You got it, Atris. Oh my god, sub bombing. Thank you, Ice Tray, very, very much for that sub. Very much appreciate, sir. If you give me a moment. Ice Trays, that's a 6. Yes, Lower Loaded is now mine, as he always should have been. I should have unmuted myself for that. And thank you very, very much, Sile, dear, for supporting me for 28 months. You were awesome, sir. Thank you. Yeah, I know. I was just, Laura, I should have expected this. I wasn't, because I'm an idiot. And both Ice Tray and Sile, dear, where would you like those to go, please? And thank you, both of you. Now, so yeah, Rule 1 is executive veto. Rule 0 is don't be a dick. That's it. I just wanted to mention both of those really quick. The Digimon run's pretty cool so far. Looking forward to more of that. Which is a good enough time to segue into my next topic. I'm going to try out something next week, starting tomorrow. I'm not sure how this is going to go. I've thought about this for a while. I've done some math. I've done some workshopping. I've done some test runs to kind of prep myself for it. We are going to start streaming at 9 instead of 10, and we're going to stop streaming at 8 instead of 7. So the 2 4-hour blocks are going to elongate in both directions to become 2 5-hour blocks. And we're going to try that for the next week. We're still going to have break at 2 to 3. And I've actually, one of the things I've been prepping for this is I'm going to make very, very quick and easy stuff to eat for lunch so that it doesn't take any prep time. So I'll have time to actually lie down, which usually I don't. So we will see how that works. This is, obviously, we're not just streaming more, which would be stupid. We are trying to be very scheduled and worky about this. Now, what brought this on? A lot of things. But the most important thing is we have 118 games in the list, and that list needs to get smaller. It's amazingly discouraging to realize that at current average pace, and I already mathed this out, next October would be when we finally get through the list at current pace. To give a little bit of perspective on that, I will have actually stopped streaming to do a recording session before we finish the list. And that will also mean we will have been in a lockdown state on the list for 2.5 years. For 2.5 years, we have prevented new runs being allowed to the list because it has been that large. That is unacceptable, in my opinion. So that needs to, this is one of the reasons we're shrinking the list, and we're going to use the next thing going into us. Now, having, if we add 2 hours every 6 days of every week to the thing, that'll be roughly 20-ish more games we could get out across the year, rather than, you know, so it'll be like 129, I think, instead of 118, or excuse me, 108. I did the math. Either way, the point being, we're going to try this for a while. We're going to see how it works, and if it works, great. I will go ahead and be honest, this is intended to be a temporary thing. This is intended to be a temporary change. We'll see. But we need to get through this goddamn list. I'm sick and tired of it. So, moving on. That's going to start tomorrow. That's as good a time as any to mention how we're going to do things with the upcoming floodgates. Now, Myron, and huge credit to Myron for this, Myron put this idea in my head. He says, why not just use the floodgates? How temporary we're talking? Well, probably until about next July. Myron's idea was, why don't we use the same floodgate method for the streaming lockdown as we did for the rumination stuff? And that's actually a very feasible, very good idea. I'm still hammering out some of the specifics, but I already have a pretty good idea of how that's going to work. For about a week, people can go ahead and it'll be a week that starts on the 5th. So anybody on Patreon, anybody who subscribes, anybody who gives bits, anybody who gives a direct donation can put something in as a nomination. A game to stream in a nomination. Once that week-ish is concluded, you know, once enough people have put in, and we'll look at that list, you guys will then do the advanced, the preferential voting method, which we used for the rumination, in order to allow you guys to vote, everyone who donated, to vote for which of those get the slots that are available. So if you guys all donate for 150 things, you will have to pick 25 from that list. Make sense? Now, that is going to cost me some money because I have to pay money to get access to that voting method, but that's not a big deal, really. I actually don't mind that at all. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. Now, there are a couple niggles I need to work out of that. For example, I need to have some way to express executive veto on that. Because remember, we're expressing executive veto more than we ever have. So that's going to be a thing we're going to have to figure out. And I'm going to have to figure out some specifics on how long the nomination cycle is up and how long the voting cycle is up. But that's the general idea of how we're going to do the voting cycle. Once we open up the list, I'm going to have to come up with some other term for it. You know, the streaming floodgates, maybe. I don't know. We'll come up with something. We'll workshop something. That's not a big deal, Venetia Silver. I don't mind doing it, and I prefer to thank you personally, and also I don't really have any mods. Speaking of which, do I have any mods here right now? Because someone asked for a Discord invite, and I don't think I have a single mod on right now, as usual. Thank you very, very much, Gavel. Very, very much appreciate and obliged that sub, as always. You know the question. If you happen to know where you want that, put that, let me know. Alright, so, Zeiss! Hey, I got Zeiss there! A. Williams 199567 would like to be in the Discord. And so would Narset. Just everyone bug Zeiss. Zeiss has got this. He's my mod right there. Alright, so I'm not sure, Takota. Because the problem is the Xenosagas are long, so yes is the answer to that question. That's not true, Crazy Norse. My voting system is better than the United States voting system. Anyways, but yeah, same thing for almost all multi-parters, that is correct. Now, next topic, oh, that's it. Okay, so let's move on to random news. If I could find the current topic thing, oh my god. I know it's not saying much. I have studied voting methods this year. Random news. This is actually pretty simple. Hey, Rax, make sure you voot. Wandavision. We got a new trailer for Wandavision. It looked creepy and weird, but that's kind of the point. I'm very curious where they're going with it. Unfortunately, I don't have much to say about it. Anybody paying attention to the Nvidia 3080 stuff may or may not be aware of the fact that there have been some crash-to-desktop issues, which are still being troubleshooted. The most likely problem right now has to do with the... I forget what they're called. I actually have that saved right here. Or at least I thought I did. Yeah, here we go. It was one of the components. Of course, it's not just going to tell me what the component is. I have to scroll down through this thing and figure out what... Whatever, there's a component on the boards that might be wrong. I say might because this is still something that's being diagnosed. So this is still kind of an in-the-air sort of a situation. But we'll see. I'm almost thankful I didn't get a hold of a 3080 or a 3090, to answer your question. Because I... Yeah, have not actually been able to get a hold of one, and that's fine, because apparently they're having hardware issues. I mean, I wasn't in a rush anyways, because I need to get a new CPU before I can begin to build the new computer, and that's not going to happen until October, so whatever. Moving on. Konami stuff hit GOG. Near as I can tell, this was actually something GOG did more than Konami did. GOG was like, hey, you want us to sell your games? And Konami was like, yeah, I guess. Let's see, what do we got here? The full list is Metal Gear, Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance, and Castlevania and Contra are now available on GOG. I'm going to be looking into that since Metal Gear Solid is coming up, but it does appear to be Metal Gear Solid, not Twin Snakes, and you guys voted for Metal Gear Solid, not Twin Snakes, so there is a fairly good possibility that we will go ahead and play the GOG version rather than the PS1 version, just for the sake of simplicity and ease of use. We'll see. People have already been modding that. There's already people trying to diagnose and fix it, which means there might be issues. I haven't looked that far into it yet. We'll see. What else we got here? Amazon announced their streaming service. It's called Luna, which makes their 4, I think, at this point. An online streaming service. There's Stadia. There's Stadia. There's... I can't remember Microsoft. Microsoft has one, it's like CloudX or something like that. And then there's one I can never think of the name of because it's stupid and dumb and nobody cares about it. And then there's Luna now. So, yay. I'm not sure. Sorry, gaming streaming. Let me be very clear about this. I don't know what I think of this. I mean, I'm kind of... I will never get a video game streaming service because I have zero use for it. However... in the interest of fairness, this is probably the closest thing we're getting to rental games. And I'm actually in favor of rental games. So, we're probably not there yet, to be 100% blunt, but at least we're kind of drifting towards there. You know, it's like the Xbox. I have no use for an Xbox, but I fully support the concept of an Xbox because there's good purpose in it, right? So it's the same kind of thing with gaming streaming. The problem, you're probably thinking, but Lore, you were very against Stadia. Yes. Yes, I was, because Stadia was garbage. Stadia is still currently garbage, and was also predicated on a series of lies while we're on the subject. Screw Stadia. Or Stadia, however you're supposed to say that stupid name. What? Anyways, moving on. Moving on. Let's talk about the thing everyone wants to talk about for some reason. Let's talk about Microsoft Zenimax. No, not even one, Mr. Red. Literally not even one. So, Microsoft bought Zenimax. Would you believe I have almost nothing to say about this? This is barely a news item for me. The only reason this is a separate news item rather than random news is because I have one thing to say about it, and because everyone was asking about it. Now you're thinking, but Lore, this is huge news. No, it isn't. Allow me to clarify. First and foremost, when did Morrowind come out? That was 2002, right? Something like that. Let's see, when did Morrowind come out? It was 2002. Yay, memory. 2002. June 6th, 2002 is when that came out on the Xbox. You already see where I'm going with this. Bethesda in particular and ZeniMax in general have been in bed with Microsoft for almost 2 decades. Now, that's important, because I want you to keep that in mind. The two have had a working relationship for longer than some of my viewers have been alive. Just to give you a little bit of perspective, okay? It's a long time. 18 years. Over 18 years at this point, because we're past June. Now, having stated that, let's go ahead and add on to that, because that's been true for a while. I mean, I could go to something much more modern if you'd prefer. Skyrim. How many of you have played Skyrim? How many of you have played Skyrim on the PC? How many of you have modded Skyrim on the PC to make it play like a PC game because it's a console game? By the way, whenever we review Skyrim, it's getting a negative for the fact that it's a console game and plays like a console game on the PC. Right? I mean, this is just duh, guys. We all know this to some extent or another. We may not have thought about it. But Microsoft and ZeniMax have been a thing for a long, long time. Which leads me to my second point. Point 2. Microsoft has been buying the crap out of a lot of studios so they have in-house studios. They've bought a lot of indie devs. In fact, if you remember, several E3s, we'll see Micromono, but probably not. Several E3s in a row had Microsoft being like, here's this new indie dev we've bought, and here's this new indie dev we've bought, and here's this new indie dev we've bought. Because they've been pushing that for years now. They have also been pushing to buy mid-level studios, like they purchased Obsidian, right? It was always logical they were going to buy a AAA title, or excuse me, a publisher, and pull that in-house. They already had the indies, they already had the mediums, they wanted a AAA. Now, since they're already looking for a AAA title, since they already have a working relationship with ZeniMax going back 18 years, who do you think they're going to buy? So again, when I heard this news, it was like, yeah, okay, that's expected. And that was pretty much my only reaction, because it was just such a duh. It's such a natural and logical consequence of how things have already been going for years now. So forgive me, but I don't think this is particularly big news. This is just Microsoft doing what it has been doing for years. Now you're probably thinking, well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? We don't know. We won't know, I'd say probably for about 2 more years. I actually agree with you on that one, Asmus. But yeah, we'll see, right? Because the results will sell whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing, and we'll see. Moving on. Now, you might be surprised by that, because that was such a minor news issue that I have nothing to really say about it. This one I have a lot more to say about. How many of you have heard of Dreamhaven? It just got announced last week. Yeah, Dreamhaven. Blizzard joke. Dreamhaven, Well, let me just pull up the site here. Dreamhaven is a umbrella publisher. Yes, I did, Jesse's Mask. Is a umbrella publisher which has been announced, which is being run by Mike Morhaime. Now, if you don't know who Mike Morhaime is, he was the CEO of, or the president of Blizzard. One of the founding members of Blizzard, actually. Now, he has set up this new thing, and they now have 2 studios underneath their umbrella. These include Moonshot Games, which was led by Jason Chias, Dustin Browder, and Ben Thompson. If you don't recognize those guys, those are all Blizzard devs from, let's see, so we've got Hearthstone and StarCraft 2. So that Chias is Hearthstone, Browder is, of course, StarCraft 2, Heroes of the Storm, and Thompson is Hearthstone and Warcraft. Scroll down a bit. Secret Door is the other studio, and that's led by Chris Sagadi, excuse me, saying it wrong, Alan Dabiri, and Eric Dodds, who you might have heard of from Hearthstone, StarCraft 2, Heroes of the Storm, Warcraft 3, the original Warcraft 3, Hearthstone, World of Warcraft, StarCraft, and Warcraft 3, StarCraft 2, and Heroes of the Storm. Sound familiar? This is several of the original Blizzard devs going away from Blizzard and making their own dev studios to make their own games. Now, let me just say, that's ripping a lot of development staff out of Blizzard, but there's 2 big things to talk about there, in my opinion. The first and most obvious is awesome. Get out from underneath Active Blizzard, or Blizza Acted, or whatever you want to call it, because it's a gaming company like every other gaming company is. And that is a problem. You know, every major gaming company out there has the same problem. And Blizzard is one of those. And the fact that they're, trying to leave and do their own thing, well, it also confirms that Blizzard's audience has changed. I've actually mentioned that several times, how I am no longer the target audience for Blizzard games, and that's fine. I have a really strong impression that the games these guys are going to be working on will be targeted towards me and the audience I am a part of. So I'm actually legitimately hyped for this. Now, here's the catch. There is one other thing here. This is the big thing here. Several of these people over the last 2 years have been slowly following suit of leaving Blizzard, right? Now, we didn't know why. We do now because of this announcement. But for 2 years, we've watched people step away from Blizzard, and they're in their late 40s. Some cases, they're in their 50s. Maybe they're just retiring. Maybe they're done. Maybe they've done their bid and they're going home and enjoying their lives, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. That's a natural thing to happen. But we didn't know the specific reason why all these people were leaving Blizzard. This now tells us definitively they were leaving Blizzard to go make games. That, more than anything, says a lot about what it's like to work at Blizzard right now. This is especially true for Mr. Morhaime, who is a total dork, by the way. The man has 0 charisma, but he is extremely, legitimately passionate about gaming. Always has been. And has been the kind of person who pushes that quality and that polish and really gives a damn. And that's been true since back in the 90s, at least. Him bowing out, I assumed, we covered that BlizzCon. We were restreaming that BlizzCon. I assumed he was retiring. No, he's going to make games. This really does say a lot about Active Blizzard right now. Yikes. We'll see, obviously, just like with the Microsoft thing, and just like the Zenimax thing, we will see what happens after this. But I will go ahead and tell you right now, I'm going to be following these 2 studios very closely, and I may just kind of start not following Blizzard stuff at this point. I mean, there's nothing left for me anyways other than WoW, and even WoW has just been kind of, like I fell out of love with WoW. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Anyways, that is, believe it or not, all I've got to talk about today. There's no other topics for the day. Oh, wait, no, there is one other topic. Possibly Mr. Ed. We're not there, of course. Yeah, they burned my home. I mean, WoW is still a fun game. It is. I still prefer playing it over FF14, and I still prefer the story of FF15 over 14, excuse me, over WoW. If we could just, like... Anyways. Let's move on to our final topic. I'm going to go ahead and mute myself here so someone knows that I'm here now and getting ready to set him up. So, some of you may or may not be aware of the fact that I have something I've been talking about a little bit called the Star Trek Rewrite Project. Now, this is something I really want to do. It will, of course, be purely fan-based, because I have no power or money, but this is something I have been thinking about for a while. I'm actually going to get rid of the current topic thing, because we're here. But I have, over here, a little bit of a guest, you might say. An amazing guest of awesomeness. I need to actually change playlists. Hang on, let me get the Doom playlist. That'll suit you. Just pull this up here. There we go. No, I actually do have a specific playlist because it'll suit your mic and your voice tone, because I think about audio stuff like that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Lore Reloaded. For those of you not aware of him, he's awesome. He has his own YouTube channel. He doesn't stream because he's terrible. I mean, he's awesome. What's up? You're live, dude. Go.
What's going on? Yeah, I do stream. I just don't stream on Twitch.
That's true. That's true. He streams on YouTube because...
That's what I do. It's
very strange. I'm not sure why he does that. Anyways, so yes, it's time for fanfiction hour, aka how do we fix... So this is one of my initial topics. What do you think of fanfiction, Reloaded?
I'm more interested in talking about how you've put music to my voice, but when it comes to fanfiction specifically, it depends on the type. I don't really have any issues with it. I think it can be... Hold
up. You didn't change your mic.
I thought I did.
No, you're still on the high-quality clipping mic.
No, okay, 1 second. I thought I did. Hold on. We even prepared for this.
Yeah, this was part of the issue we had, because you hear that clipping, guys? That's just... We're not sure what's causing that. We never actually successfully diagnosed it.
Is that better?
Okay, so, I mean, it's a little echoey, but we can hear you.
Yeah, we prepared for this, and it's still messed up. How does that work?
It's amazing.
So anyway, yeah, so I really actually enjoy like theories, which is basically fan fiction. I also like really well-made, put together fan fiction. Like, and I forget the name of it, but there was a short film that had it had Mass Effect, it had Star Wars, it had Halo, and it basically the good guys were brought in through some kind of warp gate or temporal phenomena. And yeah, I mean, I can get down with fan fiction. The only kind of fan fiction, ironically, it's funny because of what I just said, I don't do as much, is cross fan fiction, because it's really hard to do power levels, you know?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you talk about. It's one of those things where the only way we can really judge it is by guesstimating, basically. Like, okay, how does an ISD go up against a galaxy? Well, we have to think about that, don't we? Galactic Battles, a crossover fan film featuring Star Wars, Star Trek, Halo, and Mass Effect is what he's referring to. I'll go ahead and drop a link in chat for anybody curious. There you go.
Have you seen it?
I have actually seen this. It is pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good.
At the end, it makes no sense. The part of me that breaks down stories makes no sense, because the good guys just show up just to show up. There's no explanation for it. But yeah, it's really well done.
So... Yeah, I have a similar feeling on fanfiction, but I also have to admit, one of the types of fanfiction I've always been most supportive of is the fix their problems fanfiction. AKA, well, there's issues with the setting because they weren't thinking this out long term, so let's fix those. And I have a perfect example of that right off the top of my head. Star Trek Online.
Yeah.
Which is a fanfic. It's just a really good one that I highly recommend everyone play. And fixes a lot of issues. And I don't want to spoil too much for anybody who hasn't played it, but all I'm going to say is the fact that they tie in TOS, Enterprise, Voyager, I guess we'll stop there. All three of those neatly into one package that makes perfect sense. That was brilliant. It's one of the initial arcs. That's why I'm not spoiling. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. And the whole point, though, and this gets back to it, is What they did was they sat down very carefully, thought about what they were going to do and how they were going to do it, and figured out how they were going to tie everything together. They put what's it called? Work. They put work and effort into it, and the product was better as a consequence.
There are some aspects you have to pick and choose what you like on. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree, but people who are going to be strict won't like the fact that you can technically have dinosaurs with lasers on their heads, or that what the hell is it? Starts with an M class ship.
Miranda?
Yeah, Miranda, or a Constitution class can take on a Borg sphere.
Oh, yeah.
I don't. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. When it comes to the storyline, generally they can put them together really well, but you do have to pick and choose. Like with any fan fiction, there's going to be stuff you like and stuff you don't. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that the powers that be are starting to be reflective of what's in Star Trek Online. Though you haven't seen it yet or not, but they're actually bringing elements from Star Trek Online. They're canonizing some of it. So.
I will admit that does surprise me, especially since STO has always had to bend to whatever they're coming out with lately, which has caused issues. Discovery, excuse me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're starting to use aspects of it. It's kind of interesting. So if you play both, you get something out of it. Mm.
Anyways, so the Star Trek Rewrite Project is a fan fiction. Obviously, it's an intent to go through and look at all of Trek and just sort of rewrite all of Trek. Now, we're not going to talk about that in extensiveness here because the one that, Reloaded actually hates Star Trek. I mean, at least that's what his comment section keep telling me. And as a direct consequence of that, the only Star Trek show he actually likes is Deep Space Nine. So I figured we can go ahead and focus on that one rather than trying to just talk about any of them. Obviously, we should start with Voyager. I think that's the most important place to start.
It is. And I mean, sometimes I don't even like Deep Space Nine. So yeah. So
I'm just messing. So DS9. So I do have a few prepared ideas, obviously. But since I tossed this idea at you weeks ago, I'm curious if you've come up with anything. Just opening the floor there.
When it comes to changing Deep Space Nine,
mm-hmm.
I mean, overall, I don't know, because there's different aspects to it, right? I think we've talked about this before. There's different eras or different arcs when it comes to Deep Space Nine.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to changing it, there are a few pieces here and there in the Dominion War I'd change, but really I think the first couple of seasons would be where a lot of what I changed happened. They had a chance to really deal with the frontier, and I don't feel like they did all that much. I would have made the struggle for Bajor and Bajor trying to have a semblance of an actual government, something really focused on. And they did it a couple times, but they didn't seem to really focus on it.
I actually have the exact same thoughts with you, to be completely honest, because you're right. They dipped their toe into that one every now and again. Like, hang on, we're going to talk about the fact that we have droughts and starvation on Bajor, and we need this resources to fix it, and we need the replicators, but we can't take outside help because we're Bajorans and we're still recovering from the occupation, so we're trying to do it ourselves, and it's not working, and then that's a B plot. I don't even remember what the A plot was of that actual episode. Hang on, real quick. Venetia Silver asked, do I think the Q Collective is a mistake in Star Trek's canon? No. However, I do think it needs to be codified, which it is not. Which is, by the way, the single biggest thing the Trek Rewrite Project is going to be doing is to codify a lot of things and explaining how and why and where and whatnot, which Star Trek usually tries not to do because writers don't like to limit themselves.
Right. The what'd you say? The Q Continuum?
The collective, or it is the Continuum. Sorry, the Continuum is correct. I don't know why I said. Oh, he said collective. That's why I said collective.
Oh, I was curious if I missed something in Star Trek Online, like
no. That's
Q or something.
There's another Q. No, and we're not talking about the Q Continuum trilogy, although that's a good trilogy. You should read it. No, just the concept of the Q. Trelane 2.0.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to, if you were going to do something with that, they'd have to either be very, very sparse or kind of be. I think it almost have to be like the jokester / mentor that you have with Delaney, because you can't have them active. They're too powerful to be active.
Mm-hmm.
That's how, I mean, if I had to deal with them, that's how I do it. Again, if I wanted to use them a lot, it would have to be a mentor who's just trying to be a trickster, or I'd use them very, very sparingly.
I'll tell you one thing I would not do is I would not have the Q be guiding all of the universe's existence in order to craft the perfect person to save the multiverse, Kirk.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. You can look it up. You can look it up. It's not canon, but that there is a book series, and that's
Written by Shatner?
Well, yes.
Yeah, okay. I was about to say.
Well, I have to add an asterisk to that, because it's actually a good series of novels, but that's because he gave the ideas, and the people who actually wrote it are good writers.
Right.
I can't remember their names. It's a husband and wife duo, and they are really, legitimately excellent writers, and I can't think of their names. It's really embarrassing. Hang on.
Dictated by Shatner.
Yeah, there you go. Like, the content is actually quite good, or the content is terrible, excuse me, but the writing is good. Oh, right. So if you look, this is actually funny. I was going to talk about this. I look up Star Trek Federation. How many of you even know about that show? How many of you have even heard of Star Trek Federation, the show?
I don't even know that I do. Star Trek Federation. Hold on.
It was going to be another show. When they were working on it, they actually did some of the prep work for it during Enterprise. They'd started talking about it. They started hiring out actors. And when when the plug was pulled on Star Trek, that one got killed as well. So.
Oh my God! This is Discovery season 3. Oh my God! How has no one watched?
Yeah, nobody talks about Star Trek Federation. I came across it in my Enterprise research. I was like, huh, that makes sense. Yes, he predominantly wrote Star Trek V. Gum. Do I think the Federation should have gone to war with the Dominion sooner? Yes. However...
listen to their own standards and not gone into someone else's territory.
Well, see, the funny thing is, Laura Loden and I completely disagree on this. It's actually fantastic. Because he thinks that the Federation provoked the war, and I think that both provoked the war. And I also think that the war was completely inevitable the moment the wormhole opened up. That was just going to happen.
We agree that the war was inevitable no matter what. The Dominion was looking for a fight.
Mm-hmm.
But who started that fight was absolutely the Federation in every way. Canonically, there is no way, not unless you're an apologist and a fanboy, there's no way that you can see it in any other light. Okay, let me ask you this.
No, see, I'm debating. I'm not disagreeing. I'm debating.
Well, let me give you a hypothetical and see. Let's say that you had a... let's bring it real world, but not do any kind of countries, because I know you don't like that. Let's say that you had the captain of a very well-known and important station that decided to go halfway across the world and take his son and someone else to just stay on an island and just have a little retreat. They happen to go into enemy territory. They aren't aware, and they're then captured. The other state, the enemy state that captured them, says, hey, we captured your people. We don't want anyone else here. And since they're on our land, we're going to try them for trespassing and, all kinds of issues. Then the captain's country, the original country, the good guys, send the most powerful ship at the time, or one of the most powerful ships at the time, specifically modified for a fight into that territory to get one man. Can you tell me who the aggressor is in that situation?
Both. That's such an easy answer. No, I'm sorry. That is both.
You're right. If someone breaks into my house, I should definitely invite them to tea and not defend myself.
No. See, that's the point. You have literally just made my point for me. Both sides were defending themselves. That is how diplomacy works. That's how politics works. Any student of history will tell you, the situation you just gave, if some individual of significance which is what Captain Sisko was in this case, or I guess he was commander at this point. Point being, he was a politician in just about every way that matters. He was a political matter. If that person was taken by another force and pulled apart, showing up with a sizable force saying, we want to get our person back, is exactly what tends to happen.
Sorry, let's make sure we position it right, my good friend. They trespassed.
Unknowingly. That's very important. No, that is 100% important. Sisko and Jake would not have just decided to go randomly land on a Jem'Hadar planet if they'd known it was a Jem'Hadar planet.
So when the Jem'Hadar told Dax, when the Jem'Hadar was on the bridge and said, hey, stay out of our territory, that includes the wormhole, and Dax said, we're going to do what we want.
That I'm on your side with. Dax, first of all, Dax has no right to actually respond to that. She is not the kind of person who should make that call. Second of all, I'm actually with you on that. However, we're talking about events before that. We're talking about unintentionally trespassing in it. Let's say that let's say that we don't know France exists. Hear me out. Let's pull this into modern. Let's say we don't know France exists. And so we just kind of sail out and we're like, oh, that coast looks cool. And we land there. And then someone shows up and is like, hey, this is our territory and you're trespassing. We're going to take you in and try you. And it's like, oh, okay. And somehow, let's just walk around this one, word gets out of the fact that France, which we now know exists as this military superpower, is sitting over there holding our people captive. There's a lot of ways you can deal with that, but walking over with a battleship saying, hey, we'd like our person back is not unacceptable. It's not out of bounds. It's not even aggressive. It's just diplomatic.
It's not aggressive to take the most powerful.
No, I'll tell you what aggressive... You want to know what aggressive would be.
It's not aggressive.
Aggressive would be immediately fighting, launching bombers, sending missiles over, just landing troops in order to try and go and take them. That's aggressive. This is a show of force. There's a difference.
Let's say okay. Let's say that, okay, so let me better understand. Let's say that a power sent in a military force of a ship they modified for a fight. Went in...
A battleship. Let's just call it a battleship.
Let's say they sent in a battleship, yeah. And let's say this battleship detected, or on sensors, or a radar, shall we say, saw 3 other ships that were from the enemy that was coming in fast, made no attempts to contact them or say, hey, we just want our people back, and at that point fired on them. Would you think that's aggressive?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. But being on their territory and then sending in a ship to get them back, that's not aggressive. We completely disagree. All right, let's try another one.
I don't think Laura Loaded has studied history either, Mike Romano. I think that's part of the thing that I'm looking at this from a different lens here.
The fact that it's happened in history does not make it...
It doesn't make it right. No, I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying that's... Okay, let's rewind for a second. What would you do? What would you do?
First off, well, there's 2 different points to that. But first off, I actually have, maybe not as much as you and Mike Okudo, but I actually have studied all kinds of history, like when the U.S. decided to bring its warships into Japan, or how the U.K. forced Japan and China to take drug trades. I've studied World War I and World War II. But what would I have done? There's 2 different ways I would have addressed that. First, there's the pragmatic way, what any normal person in the 20th or 21st century would do. And then there's the Starfleet way. Starfleet, or the Federation, would have been sending envoys and attempting to diplomatically handle this until their eyes bled.
That's true.
That may not be the right choice. I'm not saying that's what they should have done necessarily, but what I am saying is that is how I think the Federation would have handled that. Or they would have sent in, I could see them sending in like a Black Ops team too. I could see that too.
That probably wouldn't be their first choice, honestly. That feels like it would be their second or third choice, something like that.
But if I was going to do it that way, I wouldn't have went into their territory. I would have sat right outside of it, and I would have sure have contacted them saying, hey, this was an accident. We didn't mean to do it. And if we get our captain back, if we get this highly important person back, we will leave and never come back to your lands. They have done that in TNG and DS9 before, right? We will respect your I'm not saying that they actually did it, but that's what they say.
No, yeah, I get you.
We'll respect your territory. This is Dominion space. If you could send us like a galactic map, that'd be fantastic. And then we would be on our way. And I would give them an escalation process. Kind of like what the Admiral Ross, what Ross did with the Romulan. Please give us our officer back, or we'll come and get him. I don't think that's very Starfleet.
Hold up, what incident was that? Remind me.
That was during when. So this was during the Dominion War. You had talked about it just a...
Oh, that's when he backed Kira, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
He did diplomacy all the way up to that point. He's like, let's stop doing this. He talked to both the Romulans and Kira, and ultimately, when neither were stepping down, he was like, okay, if you don't remove them, I will.
Yeah.
And you can't stop me. You can stop the Bajorans, but you're not going to be able to stop a Starfleet, the Starfleet, right?
Yeah.
Starfleet. So that's the way the 2 ways I would have handled it. And
Okay.
I just, again, they went straight in there, man. They went straight. They took 4 different vessels. How about Starship Down? Let's look at Starship Down. Starship Down was the one where they tried to make it like they, what the hell am I looking for? We have them in real life. They're underwater.
Submarine.
Submarine. It was trying to be.
Oh, when they're in like the or not the nebula, they're in like an atmosphere of a gas giant or something. Yeah. Okay, I know.
Now let's remember why they're there. Starfleet has actively helped selling.
That irritated the crap out of me. I'm with you on that. What the hell?
They're actively causing
God.
rebellion. Actively causing rebellion with them. And then the Dominion come to do what is a legal police action, and they kill them.
Yeah.
How?
See, the thing is, I don't want to be 100% clear here. I am not taking a stance no matter what. And I know I have to remind you every now and again that I'm not like that. I think the Federation has done a lot of stupid things in the Dominion War. And I do think that they completely handle it terribly. In fact, I don't remember the episode, but there was one where they were just like, and here's the Defiant exploring the Gamma Quadrant. Not to find Dominion bases, not to communicate with someone, no, they just wanted to go exploring. So they just decided to send out their only warship at that point in history out into enemy territory, which at this point is definitively enemy territory, just to go exploring. Right. What are you doing? What the hell, Starfleet?
I mean, not just, and they're using cloaking devices, so they're not being seen. Look, I get what the writing was supposed to be. The writing was supposed to be Starfleet good, Dominion bad, and the Dominion is bad, and the Dominion was looking for a fight. I'm not contesting that. My point is, and what I'm trying to say is that Starfleet justified the war. Now, whether they justify it or not, the Dominion was coming. The Dominion always had designs on complete control of the Alpha Quadrant. But they just made it so that it's realistic that the other powers were like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't get in the middle of this. Who was it? The Romulans, wasn't the Breen. It was the Romulans. Who was neutral when they first talked about it? The Romulans, there were other powers.
There were, and I don't remember any. They were signing treaties with such and such and such and such and such. I don't remember any of them. They were rarely mentioned powers, which is why I'm just stalling here.
But from a galactic standpoint, it makes sense. You have a coup. I don't know if that ever got out, but Starfleet, you had an admiral.
There was an attempt at a coup. Yeah.
Yeah. In theory, well, I don't know. That's weird. I don't know if that ever got out. There's arguments for both sides. Walk me through this. How are they not the aggressors? How about we do that?
All right. So I'm going to give you the answer, and you're going to disagree with me, and that's cool. Because, see, he and I can actually disagree and not come to blows. It's great. I love it. Because he's a human being, and so am I. Well, okay, I'm not, but you know what I mean. Anyway, so the reason the Federation... I'm going to tell you the answer first, and I'm going to explain it. The reason the Federation are not the aggressors is because they... of the same reason that if you are... Let me use a specific exact example that actually happened in my real life. Let's say that you have to go to the bathroom. And let's say that there's a bully there, and the bully prevents you from going to the bathroom, okay? And so they sit there, and they don't violate any problems. They don't do anything wrong. They just sit there and prevent you and provoke you and provoke you and provoke you, probably through words, until finally it reaches the point where you really have to go to the bathroom, and you have to get back to class, so you slug him in the face. Now, who's the aggressor there?
Well, I mean, from a Starfleet standpoint, you are. Starfleet is unrealistic. That's a part of the problem.
I agree with you on that.
What Starfleet was in TNG and DS9, early DS9, is so in contrast to what they became in the Dominion War, which is why I can understand why some people don't like it. However, there's more to it than that. That's just too simplistic for what's occurring.
See, that's true. I was going with an analogy, but that is the point.
I'll answer your question. I get how ad absurdum arguments work too. I'll answer it, but then we need to move up.
What's ad absurdum? Hang on.
The ad absurdum fallacy. It's where you say something very simplistic or something that's absurd to show how it makes sense. So yes, I would say that ultimately they have pushed you into a corner where you don't have a choice, right? Assuming that you had to use that bathroom, you couldn't do any other options, right? However, what if I'm trying to think of something that would go along with that analogy, because
Well, we could throw the analogy out the window. I could just say it more simply. They were provoked. This was someone in chat said this very clearly. This was the Dominion designing a casus belli so that they would have justification for going. And no, hear me out. But we know the Dominion knows how to play politics and play on the grand scale. In fact, they are probably the only nation in all of Star Trek who does that. Everyone else just kind of does things with no sense make. But the Dominion will actually do things like set up a situation so that they can respond and have the higher ground and have the higher legality. And this is why there were so many nations they were signing non-aggression treaties with. This is why they went ahead and made the Bajoran Treaty, remember? To be, oh yeah, we're totally friends now with Bajor. Why they tried so hard to be friendly with Bajor in order to prove that they could actually keep involved. You get my point. They were actually capable of playing at politics. It's actually one of the reasons I love the Dominion so much fictionally. Not real life, the Dominion are pure evil. But having said all of that, this is my impression. I've always had the very strong impression that because we know they'd been watching the Federation for some time, and we know they'd already infiltrated on the other side of the wormhole prior to this point, this was all set up. In fact, some of my viewers pointed out that the immense show of force that the Dominion did in that very episode, we've wiped out your Bajoran colony, we're going to ignore your force field, we're going to beam out to miles, or not miles, hundreds of thousands of miles away, or light years away, or whatever. All of that was stuff that's not normal for the Dominion. Now, that bothered me, but people pointed out that that was just them going above and beyond for that initial show of force in order to try and push back, so that because they knew with their infiltration thing that the Federation would then push back again, which would give them the excuse to just straight up go to war and do whatever they wanted to. Now, I'm still with you on the fact that the Federation's second pushback was completely unjustified. We're not going to stop exploring. We're not going to stop. That's just stupid, as we've already discussed. But initially, they specifically sought out Sisko and Jake and Quark in order to try. Everyone forgets Quark in that episode.
They sought out.
No, they did. I guarantee you. I guarantee you that they specifically were ready to grab them there to set this up. This was a setup. I guarantee it. Yeah, no, sorry. Reverse that. The Dominion, I guarantee you, the Dominion set up that camp with that Vorta to get that Sisko so that they could set this up and have this initial provocation, for lack of a better word. Now, that being stated, you do have a very good point. When the Galaxy, what was it, the Odyssey shows up, what the Odyssey should have done is said, we'd like our people back, let's negotiate. I'm completely on board with you on that. It's just they didn't because they're stupid. Which goes back to the Federation's stupid problem. And there's a lot of drama for drama's sake here. There's a lot of that, actually, in the Dominion War. It's a shame. I love DS9, but the seams show when you really go through it and analyze it. Anyways, one of these days we'll actually talk about rewriting this show instead of just discussing the aggressive thing. We haven't moved on from this topic in like 20 minutes.
There's a couple of things. First off, the Dominion said they didn't expect them for 150 years, though they were keeping tabs on them.
Before the wormhole opened, remember?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're like, well, they were prepping for all this. They didn't expect them for 150 years. Mm-hmm. They were still aware of them. They were still keeping tabs on them, mm-hmm. but they didn't expect to have to deal with them for 100 or how many ever years.
Exactly.
Also, when they beamed on the ship, I mean, just to confirm, I'm sorry, because I get confused. Was them beaming on the ship and being on Starfleet Bajoran territory, is being somewhere that your nation doesn't own, is that a hostile act?
No, that's not what I meant. The point is, okay, so
somewhere you're not supposed to be on territory.
No. The point, the beaming, the infiltrating DS9 wasn't really the point. It was the whole point that they were showing you can't stop us, you can't prevent us, right? They beamed through the shields. The guy literally, the Jem'Hadar in question, just walked right through the force field that was surrounding him, and then they beam out light years away. That's what I mean by look how strong we are, right? It's a puffer fish pumping up. It's trying to look bigger and stronger than the actual, which is funny because the Dominion's already super strong. And if we're being honest, this probably was actually a writing thing, not an in-character thing, but whatever. Because they hadn't designed most of the Dominion yet. I mean, they hadn't even invented the Vorta cloning thing at this point. We know that totally. But that's getting into real life stuff, so let's ignore that. The point being, I think that was them being, hey, we are so much bigger and stronger and more powerful than you. Piss off. And then Dax was an idiot. And I also think that, like I said, this whole thing was provoked. After all, they were completely ready to go on taking out the Bajoran camp, which I love. Neither of us have commented on the death of millions of Bajorans at this point, or hundreds of thousands, or whatever it was.
They were in. I mean, I just disagree. So here's my thing. It's not Federation. This is not how the TNG and early DS9 would. So anytime they're told to get off, the thing about Starfleet is that they are willing to forgive when a 21st century.
God, you're quiet. Hang on. I'm gonna see if I can turn you up a bit.
Sorry, I can speak louder or try to.
I don't know how to boost it.
I can see if it'll boost on my side.
Can I? Or says, nope. That doesn't change anything. Damn. And you're already at max. Yeah, this music is almost inaudible, and yet it's louder than you. And that's
Really?
I'm going to go ahead and kill the music here completely.
Oh my god. Ow. That was the wrong button to hit for that. Hold on.
I literally can't turn him up anymore. He is actually at source right now. Sorry, guys.
Let me see if I can turn myself up then. How about now?
There we go. That's louder. It's a little more. It's worse, but it's better. Okay.
That's as loud as I can get it on my side.
Turn it down just like 1 more decibel from that.
How about right here?
Was that 1 decibel down?
That's 1 step down from the little slider thing.
What do you guys think? How's it sound to you guys?
I can go down further if I need to.
No. No further down. In fact, I want you to go up from there if you can. But if the only further up is the then we're gonna have to live with it.
How about that?
Okay, we'll live there. We got a little bit of cracking, but that's okay.
All right, I'll try
peaking.
To speak up
Sorry,
a little bit
peaking.
like this.
Peaking. That's what that's called.
What if I do this? If I speak louder, does that help?
You guys tell me, because.
Okay.
So continue,
so
please.
I'll do like this for a while, and then they can let me know. I'll go lower and try to speak louder if I need to.
Okay.
Where the hell was I?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you in mid-thought. It's just, it was having issues.
In the next generation, we've had destroyed colonies, destroyed civilization. The entire Cardassian border war was them letting the Cardassians beat them when they didn't even need shields to take on their enemies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the destruction of the Bajoran colonies, especially since they are in Dominion space, according to the Dominion, we can argue on whether they really were or not. In Dominion space is not something new. This has happened to the Federation and to Starfleet, and they don't go, oh no, you didn't, and then try to start a war.
That is true. Can you turn it down 1 more step? Apparently, that's just a bit too bad.
See, we're going to. Is it still not loud enough in peaking? Because that's going to be
the peaking is the real problem. But
how about now?
Okay, so we definitely have less distortion, less peaking. So.
Okay, cool. Well, let me know if it's more peaking. We can try to go down. I'm speaking up more too. So, but yeah. I mean, it's just again. I understand that they were puffing up, but this isn't the first time that people have puffed up. This isn't the first time this is the first time Starfleet could have lost. It's kind of like having that school kid who is really, really, or a really YouTuber even, who is really, really relaxed when there's someone not at their power level. When they're taking on someone, they're very, very gentle or very understanding or compliant, but have someone that's the same level as them, someone that can either defeat them or someone who is as big a YouTuber or whatever they are. And then all of a sudden, they just go crazy and they're like, you can't do this to me. The Starfleet had a temper tantrum is what they did. I think based on what you've said and what we've seen.
I actually would tend to agree with you, and I decided to look something up, and unfortunately I think real life is drifting into the fiction once again here. Because, and I was right, that episode, the big episode we keep talking about, The Jem'Hadar, Season 2, Episode 26, was written by Ira Steven Behr. Mm-hmm. And while I have a lot of respect for the man, and he does some good work, the fact of the matter is that man seriously agenda'd DS9 a lot. He constantly pushed his version of the Federation and his version of Starfleet, and the more I studied DS9, the less I liked his direct involvement in plots. I mean, ignoring the obvious big stuff like the fact that he wanted the whole show to be a show, which still boggles my mind. He was constantly saying, the Starfleet's got to be dark and horrible and oppressive, and there's got to be this fascist regime thing, and just that idea of him constantly delving into that. I have a feeling that he was pushing for Starfleet to be exactly what you just described. The kid who has now met someone who is at level and has decided to push back, not because it's a reasonable action, which it could be argued to be true, but because, screw you, you can't be as strong as me.
Right. Or they're just not used to it.
Or they don't know how to deal with it. Because you're right, every time, this actually pisses me off personally, every time in TNG they meet someone and it's like, whoops, we did something. Well, hang on, let me lay back as far as I can and let you walk completely all over me here. Like, right. The Federation's approach in almost all of TNG is to be a doormat. That's not diplomacy. But I will agree that in Jem'Hadar showing up and just attacking is also not diplomacy. There's a middle ground, guys. There's a middle ground.
Right. Well,
this is why, if I could just, we should probably wrap this topic up. But this is why my original point was both were the aggressors.
Yeah.
If I'm making any of that make sense now.
My point, and we can get off of it and go back to what we were discussing. But my point was, I think that Starfleet justified the war, and they had the opportunity not to. So if Starfleet had added like TNG Starfleet, the war would have been completely on the Dominion side. But I think that they justified it.
What's really strange about that is I'm wondering why they didn't do it that way. Like, because as you yourself have pointed out, they have an obsession with the Federation being the good guys, with good reason. And they wanted to, like why not just make the Federation completely innocent in this? Right. Instead of constantly poking and provoking. Now, I mean, we do have to consider some scope and scale here. The Federation was sending the Defiant on exploration missions and trade missions with Dominion members. Now, that, as we both agree, that's unacceptable, right? However, that is on a different level from we're going to try and destroy an entire star system that also includes an inhabited planet and multiple fleets from multiple powers, to name one example of the Dominion's acts of aggression. And I only want to point that out because I don't want anybody to think that I'm, Dominion apologist or whatever, because the Dominion are the bad guys. Let's be really clear here. They are an evil, oppressive, theocratic dictatorship. Tyranny.
Yeah. That's what people get confused. They think that I'm I'm pro-Dominion. I'm not. I'm just talking about the actions of Starfleet.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to the rewriting thing, and I think the first couple seasons would have been more is as interesting. But if I was going to write it and somehow make Starfleet a little bit less culpable, I guess, and I don't know how, because you got the Prime Directive you have to deal with, but I would have probably either did one of two things. I would have done it, like you said, with the Dominion baiting by attacking innocent civilians or doing things where Starfleet wants to respond, kind of like the Kobayashi Maru type deals. I'd write that. Or I would have had, on the opposite side, there would have been some kind of government organization that Starfleet met. And I would have had like 5 or 6 episodes, or even a season.
In the Gamma Quadrant?
In the Gamma Quadrant.
Okay.
That they owned that territory. And so I would have, within that, even maybe a season, if I could have done it, where they're working with this government, they're working to do things, they have good trade relations. Bajor and them have signed like a military pact. And Bajor, they even want to become a part of Bajor, and Bajor wants to bring them in with them when they become a part of the Federation. And then the Dominion comes in. Yeah. And they're getting stomped. Well, and they have no way to defend themselves against the Dominion. And now the Federation Starfleet has to make a choice. And you can even have issues with the Prime Directive, where people saying, well, the Prime Directive comes in, but I would have the Dominion genociding them. I mean, not stopping. And then when the Dominion interacts with the Federation, they love bomb the hell out of the Federation. They play the game. It's like they were in our territory. This has always historically been Dominion land. We're just taking it back. We understand you may disagree, but we know you have the Prime Directive, so we're going to ask that you stay out of it.
I mean, that worked for the Klingon Civil War.
Yeah. And it
shouldn't also have, by the way. But
it also worked in the same thing. Season 1, Deep Space Nine, I think it's Season 1, with the Circle.
Oh, yeah. That was actually Season 2, but yeah.
Okay, Season 2, where the Cardassians are helping out one side, and the most idiotic Starfleet admiral is like, well, the Cardassians may not do the Prime Directive, but we do. Screw if it screws over us and everybody else, I mean, I think it would have been interesting. You could have made it. And even then, I would probably, in this alternate universe, still argue that they're a little bit culpable, but not to the extremes we are now, Because there's something to be said for stopping a genocide.
Well, yeah. That's hang on, let me stalwartly defend preventing genocide. Okay, done.
Right. I mean, prime directive or no prime directive, if everyone's going to die if you do nothing, then the prime directive is useless at that point.
Which is brought up several times in TOS. I point that out in our TOS videos. So, Sylder, no, I'm reading all your posts. I'm not responding to everyone directly. I do apologize for that. I don't want to talk over other lore. I don't know if he's reading chat. So I have no idea if he's involved in that.
No, I'm just having a conversation.
Okay, so there you go. So we got a little bit of half and half thing going on. Now, all that being stated, let's bring this back to our main topic here. Actually, no, Red Letter. Prime Directive is changed in what it is exactly, depending on which point in Star Trek you're at, which is just stupid. But anyways, getting back on topic. So funnily enough, my next question was going to be, if you had to make at least one really big change to Deep Space Nine, what would you do? I think we already have it. Change the Federation to be far less in the wrong. Change the Dominion to be far more in the wrong. Make it so it's not even really the same debatable thing we've been talking about for 30 minutes, but instead the Dominion decided to and like you say, they decided to play at politics the whole time, which would then explain why the Federation kind of lets them get away with it for so long. As an addendum, sorry, go ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry, but I'm just saying you can still use a lot of the other plot points as well. Romulans are largely not going to care because it's not impacting them, and the Klingons are going to go crazy because they consider the Dominion to be dishonorable. So you can still have those plot points. You're not rewriting the other stuff that happens. And I'm sorry, continue.
I was just going to say, as an addendum, go ahead, Salder. As a further addendum, I have to say, someone asked in chat earlier, I forget who it was, forgive me, do you think the Federation should have gone to war early? My answer is yes, absolutely. But that's me saying that. The problem is, if you held me the reins of the writer, and now I have to write the Federation, the answer is no. The answer changes because the Federation is so peace treaty happy. Not peace happy, but peace treaty happy. As we've seen, as you pointed out, Lower Loaded, as I've mentioned a few dozen billion times in TNG and DS9 and Voyager, when they will cling, and Enterprise actually, and TOS. Oh my God, I just forgot. There are times when they will just cling to a piece of paper and be like this, and it's like, well, but they're not adhering to it. Yeah, but we have a treaty. It's okay because we have a treaty, and they will just cling to that. So it makes sense to me that the Federation would take so long, even after being provoked time and time and time again by the Dominion, and never actually push back, because that's just how the Federation tends to operate, right? And even if I was to call that stupid, which I do, it's still actually a degree of understandable. After all, nobody really wants to go to war, right? Like, that's a messy, terrible, destructive business, which involves a lot of death, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of mobilization, complete overhaul of the infrastructure, of how we move forward our development process and our manufacturing process and our repair process. We have to change how training goes. We have to change what kind of missions we push people out to. We have to reassign people. Even ignoring the morality, a war is a very messy thing. So I understand why people simply, on the face of it, do not want to go to war. Meanwhile, the Klingons are like, sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry. No, you go ahead.
No, that was the joke.
I mean, you just have some episodes to address it would be how, if I was the writer, is how I'd get around it. You remember right before they retake DS9, you see admirals, they have to, Operation Sacrifice of Angels, or whatever they got, return home, whatever the operation was, in Sacrifice of Angels. You just have admirals get together, with Cisco being the proponent of making sense. Have the Dominion do something incredibly awful. Either they take a sector, or they use a disease, like the biological weapon, and the Federation, Starfleet, knows that they did it. The Romulans are trying to say, no, it wasn't them, or they're not sure. The Dominion is in some way making the galaxy seem like maybe it was an accident or they didn't. But Starfleet knows, right? Yeah. And so you have Cisco go to the Admiral table, and they're like, have this exact conversation. Maybe we can talk to them. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe, we don't. This is going to cost a lot of lives. Remember what happened during the Cardassian War, border wars? That worked out. Do we want that again? And then you just have Cisco like backhand them and just send them through a.
Because that's his style. Punk.
Yeah, you backhand the Vulcan, and he looks at the human and asks if they want a peace, and then they walk out and they're at war, and that's what they do. So. I think just something like that. And just because you said something, SF Debris says this, and I think it's excellent. The Dominion is basically the Borg if the Borg could do diplomacy.
Yeah.
Which
ties into what Silder just mentioned in chat too. So the problem was, Silder, you're absolutely right, and the problem is, if I'm being completely honest, we'd have to restructure the Dominion in this rewrite, because the Dominion as they are, just like the Borg as they are, don't actually make sense. There's just too many logical disconnects. A species and organization like that does not need to do what they did in DS9. They can just be like, oh yeah, okay, so we did this, and now you're here, and it's not a big deal. We're gonna diplomatize with you. We're gonna reach out to you, and then 3 or 8 or 900 years pass, and total complacency has set in, and then the Dominion's like, oh, now we're gonna attack you. That's the problem. The Dominion are written to be long-term, but they don't. If you actually look at Dominion strategy and tactics, they're all focused on the now. We need victory now. We need to crush Earth now. We need to go in and invade now and get all these ports on the other side of the wormhole, which is contrary to how Dominion mentality should be. So I think the Dominion would have to be rewritten to make that line up either one direction or the other.
Well, and the ending, when you really think about it, doesn't make a ton of sense either.
No, it doesn't.
Because once the wormhole opens back up, and they're allowed to come in and out, you still have the vast infrastructure of the Dominion that has 800 civilizations, and it's just a wink and a prayer that they're not going to decide to come right back through. I guess you can assume that maybe the prophets are going to do something about that, but it's still, I mean, ultimately, if I was writing the Dominion, that would be a ploy too. I honestly, they wouldn't use the wormhole. They'd be figuring out another way. But as soon as they got transwarp or whatever it is, man, we're taking an entire 7 fleets, because Starfleet, everybody's devastated. They can't defend themselves against anybody. So if you could get there quick in some way, it would be, I don't know.
For the record, oh, sorry. I thought you were done. I'm sorry.
No, that's it.
I mean, don't even joke about that Tesla. I've always thought that DS9, one of the biggest things that's pissed me off about DS9, I love this show, but its ending never felt good for me for many reasons. And, no spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched DS9, but the peace treaty has always been one of those big ones. Me and my friends have always looked at that like, that's not lasting. There's no way. Right? We'll send you back, and we'll totally not go to war again, and we totally will leave you alone for a century or two, and then we'll come back and curb stomp you. It's just, the Dominion is such a long-term problem that was never solved. Now, STO did move in direction. This is one of the things STO did properly, I think, by effectively retconning a few things and making a few things work really well, which I liked. I like what STO did with the Dominion. But the long and the short of it is that was just kind of dropped, and along with several other things, pirates, and I've always just sat there like, well, now what? Because it feels like that's a now what to me. It feels like it's a to be continued. And Star Trek, other than STO, has never continued that. Not counting the books, too. Not counting the books. Because Voyager didn't do anything with it, and Discovery is doing something with it, but we'll see where that goes. And Picard doesn't even address it. And Lord X doesn't even address it either, although Lord X is before Picard. But still, point remaining. Like, the Dominion is just, okay, let me rewind a second. Let me summarize all of my complaints with it in one sentence. It's a pat ending.
Right.
We won. We rescued the princess. We don't have to think about anything because we won. It's I like video games, but it feels like a video game ending. We beat the boss, and now it's over, and everything's fine forever. And it's like, but...
Yeah, I mean, and there's also another piece that was always kind of odd to me, and you could try to explain it, that maybe Starfleet was done and they just did not want the fight. But when you look at the land reversal, So who gets what land in all of the territories and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Klingons keep some of Cardassian space.
Mm-hmm.
They got this by being manipulated by the Dominion. It wasn't even something the Klingons necessarily would have done if it wasn't for the Dominion. So the Klingons were rewarded for being something they weren't supposed to be, for being a warrior race, which was just unfair. And I don't really see Starfleet being okay with that, but again, maybe they had just been done with fighting. They were just like, whatever, because I mean, they do that. They sometimes will do stuff that they're okay with an uncomfortable or a piece where everyone is pissed off in the end.
That's true. That is very Federation, as we talked about earlier. We got a treaty, guys. It's okay. We got a treaty.
Doesn't matter if it's one-sided or screws over civilians.
Nope.
It's going to create one of the biggest massive terrorist cells that the galaxy has.
How many millions of Cardassians are dead? No problem. We've got her in prison.
Yeah. So everybody wins. A shapeshifter. We're not even.
Yeah, we have a shapeshifter in prison, guys.
We restored her ability to shapeshift.
And we've healed her, so she's going to live technically forever.
Right.
And so we're just going to lock her up in prison for however many years. That's also an STO. That's another thing that comes up.
But she's really, really sorry.
She's super sorry for murdering millions upon millions upon millions. Was it hundreds of millions by the end there?
Yeah.
How many were dead in the Battle of Cardassia? I gotta look that up now.
Well, here's the thing. When it comes to the numbers, the writers didn't know what they were doing.
Very true.
So, for instance, it was something stupid like 300 million Cardassians dead. Only 100 million Starfleet officers lost their lives, or something stupid.
Oh yeah, it was ridiculous. I remember that.
Yeah, something ridiculous. Just going back to segue just one more time, I do think that if I had to choose between the beginning 2 seasons of Deep Space Nine or rewriting the Dominion War, I would almost choose to keep the Dominion War as it is with all of its flaws, because it's still really good, and rewrite the first 2 seasons and make them a lot better. Because I think that was the time. And you could even set it up for what happens into the Dominion War to justify like Prime Directive and going over and not listening, because they had the opportunity to really explore the Prime Directive in this. You have Bajor starving, Bajor going into civil war. Starfleet came in and offered to assist. And how far are they going to go? How far is too much? Should they give up the station? Like, I don't know that I agree with the fact that Starfleet was like, all right, well, there's a civil war, we're out. No, we were invited, and they're still the people. We may not get in the middle of it on Bajor, but we have something at stake here, and we will do negotiations when you guys figure that out.
For the record, I agree with you on that, and I just have to bring up yet again Redemption Part 1 and 2, where the legally recognized military leader of their military ally formally and officially asked for aid in putting down. It wasn't quite a civil war at that point. It was just a usurper rebellion. And the Federation's response was, well, that's an internal matter.
Right.
That is because it's not to the same scale and it applies different ways, but it is the same mentality. Nope, hands off. We're not. It's an internal matter. You can deal with that however you want. The only thing the Feds did in Redemption was tried to prevent the Romulans from getting involved. It's just like,
which is still getting involved.
Exactly.
I mean, you're wasting everyone's time because you're choosing a side and you're doing something. And then if they had discovered the convoy going into Klingon space, are they going to start a war with the Romulans? I mean, it's just you're still getting involved. I forget which one it was. An interesting way of done it. If I had to rewrite season 1, season 2, when I did that arc where there's a civil war, I would do it like it's a TNG episode. They had a trading partner, and they were sending down medical supplies, and Bashir gets captured, and so now they're trying to figure it out. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I got to be honest. That sounds like one of those amazingly generic season 1, 2 episodes I don't remember.
Yeah.
Like I've got the vague ideas of the episode, but it's not clicking anything.
It starts out with a bombing, and you have Worf and Data and Bashir helping people, and Data's like, "We have to get out of here."
Oh, I'm sorry. You mean Crusher, not Bashir.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Crusher.
That was what was throwing me. Yeah, no, that's the High Ground, which I actually like that episode. But TNG, the
Yeah,
High Ground.
but I mean, that's how I probably would have handled it at the start. Is Starfleet not backing off, and having discussions about if they should or not, and Starfleet saying, "Hey, we're just going to help where people ask." And then even if maybe the rebellion, the opposite of the provisional government, like one of their ships was disabled or there were people hurting, and Starfleet goes and helps them, and then they have issues with the provisional government,
Mm-hmm.
and them coming back and saying, "Hey, we have the agreement with you. We are allied with you, but we're going to help people if they need help. We're not going to help them fight you, but we're not going to let them die in space either."
Yeah.
So I think you missed a lot of opportunities.
There's also historical precedence for that, to go back to the real life history thing. There's countries which could say, here, this is a medical ship, hands off. It's here for people who need medical aid. That's it. And of course, people have snuck spies into those and saboteurs into those. That's a problem you got to deal with. But the precedents exist. I'm totally with you. And I actually like that idea a lot. If I could add two things. First of all, someone in chat said something. I agree. It was Justin. I agree with the idea of having more Dominion buildup in season 1 and 2. Like the really slow buildup you can only do if you know it's coming. Which, of course, the Dominion wasn't invented until mid-season 2, which is why that didn't happen. But for example, you're talking about the Circle and their push. Rather than them being pushed by the no. It's totally the Cardassians. The Cardassians are totally pushing it. And there would be like one scene where you see the Cardassian kind of nod and it leaves, and then he just kind of gels away into some kind of goop, and and then it just cuts off, right? Yeah. Just little stuff like that to make you go, wait, what? And to kind of sow those seeds so you can tell what's coming. And so when you watch it the second time, you can be like, there it is. They were doing that the whole time. Just stuff like that.
Or do like what you did with it's where like Marset or whatever. So you have a captain who shows up, a goal who shows up or whatever, and is helping them in the background. And then you have when it's finally shown, you have Ducat's like, there's no way. He's my second in command. And then he points over and he's been there the entire time. And then they never address it.
Yeah, I like that.
And it's like, there's no way he's been there. I can prove beyond the shadow of a doubt he's been right here. And then everyone just assumes that Ducat's lying.
Well, yeah, because it's Ducat.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good one. Yeah. Little stuff like that. Just show that the Dominion has been pulling strings since a while. In fact, since this is of course part of the Star Trek rewrite project as a whole, I got to be honest, I'd have 1 or 2, maybe 3 hints even back in TNG. Yeah. Just show that they have been there. This.
The Maquis.
Yeah.
You know what they could have done, been interesting, is they had that arc where the Klingon Federation ties. They were trying to play on that if the Klingon and the Federations would stay allies. They had a couple of like was it the Drumhead? Where it's not the Drumhead. It was you had a Klingon spy, and then
that was actually the Drumhead, yeah.
Okay, and then there were a couple of episodes where they're like, yeah, we've heard reports, and the Klingons they've went into it. And most of it was the Romulans, but then you bring in the Dominion a little bit too. Mm-hmm. Like you said, maybe have a Romulan turn into goop at some point, and then use the same effect when you get to DS9, because they did it with the Maquis.
Yeah, and of course, now the advantage of this too. Obviously, this wouldn't work for anybody who's seen Star Trek before, but the advantage if we were doing this in a linear fashion was that they would see this effect. It would be the same effect, and then DS9 would start, Emissary would happen, and Odo would do that effect. And anybody paying attention would be like, wait, is what? And they would start to connect the dots there on their own, and there would be a little bit of a mystery of, is Odo part of what's been happening with the Romulans? Is there some connection there? And then we find out about his search for his people, and then it starts to be like, oh, okay, so there's others, gotcha. I don't know. I think I like that idea of that buildup. But yeah, if we're going to do a rewrite, we're doing it from ground up, and I do feel like there's a lot of more buildup across shows that could be done, especially TNG and DS9, because the two were very closely connected for a brief period of time there, mostly for marketing reasons. I feel like there's a lot that they could have done to benefit each other rather than just kind of, ships passing in the night kind of a thing, which is what they did.
Well, here was a question too. Do you believe the first 2 seasons of DS9 were all about Sisko's inexperience? that
No.
that he has to always seem very apparent as a catalyst to the Minion War. I no, I don't think so either. I would say because I think I may have gotten this idea from you, but I don't know. I think he was a different kind of captain, and that's why he was given Bajor.
Oh yeah, no,
Someone knew he was what was needed for that type of deal. So I do think that, but no, I don't think it was about his inexperience necessarily.
Yeah, no,
I very capable.
I agree with you and disagree with the question. Yeah, no, he was experienced from day one. We see literally in Emissary how quickly and efficiently he walks in and acts as a governor. And let's just call that what it is, because Sisko acted like a governor, not a captain, like you were just saying. And he was good at that. Like, he was capable of working with officials of state, of being diplomatic, of being harsh when he needed to. Sisko knew how to stonewall, how to reach out the hand. He was someone I would call legitimately diplomatic, ironically enough. So no, I think he was selected for that because he had those kind of traits.
And he handled Kira very well too. Because I really liked I forget the scenario, but he gave her something and then told her to never double cross him again, which is exactly what he needed to do. I forget where it was.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember it either.
Yeah, he handled people really, really well because that's what Kira needed at the time. So he wanted to show that he was there to help, but you weren't going to double cross him. He wasn't going to have to look behind his back or anything.
Yeah.
The only time that didn't work, I think, is with the security officer. I forget his name. Eddington?
There's real life problems with that one, as I've discussed by this point.
Well, I've talked to you. You just said they didn't know what to do with him. I think that was the worst thing. Well, and Ducat's changed to go crazy, but beyond that, I wish they had done something with him.
Yeah, they just... In fact, it's funny. They were jumping around with ideas with Eddington so much. Some of you may remember, this was back when... This was the first... DS9 was the first Star Trek that came out when they could have live fan feedback. They had those AOL chats. Ronald D. Moore would get in there. Ira Steven Bear would get in there. And people kept asking questions and postulating about Eddington. Like, everyone thought he was a changeling. We found out years later that he was actually supposed to be a changeling. But so many people guessed it. I mean, this. When I say he was supposed to, I mean, this is like whiteboard levels of planning ahead. It wasn't written into any scripts. But that was the original arc idea. And they're like, well, everyone guessed that, so we got to do something else with it. How about the Maquis? The who?
Was it you who railed against it? No, I don't think so. I think it was a Game of Thrones breakdown I was listening to. Someone was saying that one of the worst things to come out of the internet is that showrunners, if they find out someone has guessed it, will try to rewrite things. Mm-hmm. Even if someone's guessed it, if it's a good story, still do. In fact, it means more to the fans if they guess it. Yeah,
you're right. That's not a quote from me, but that is also something I've said many, many times. In fact, I've talked about that when encouraging and trying to discuss how to write. Because one of the biggest things, and I have this problem too, and one of the biggest things is you find yourself thinking, oh, that's too typical. Or, oh, they figured it out. And so you immediately like, oh, I got to change it. Right? I've got to... No, don't give in to that impulse. Don't give in to that. Just write the story to be as good of a story as it can. Let the pieces lay where they lie. And you're right, because, yeah, a lot of shows have had that problem where it's like, oh, shoot, they guessed it. We need to change something.
Right. Because, again, it's not... them not getting it right is not going to be as good to them as you writing a really good story. I think, in my opinion.
No, I agree. Sorry, I want to jump in here really quick. Red Letter has a decent idea. Replace Hudson with Chakotay and Rose co-pilot in First Strike, I don't even remember her name, with B'Elanna, the Klingon woman. I actually point this out in the rumination. That was actually supposed to be a reference to B'Elanna for some... Anyways, replace them with those characters early on in order to help set up Voyager. Because again, this is all the rewrite of the whole thing, and I do like that idea of baking some of Voyager in there.
Did they have those actors set for Voyager, though?
Yes. The actors were already hired and set up in... while season 7 of TNG was in production, to give you an idea of the time frame there.
You know what you could do, and I don't know how much it would detract from Deep Space Nine, but here's what could happen. You have that, if it happened before and they knew it was going to be Chakotay and B'Elanna, that's fine. You have Sisko actually capture them, maybe with Eddington. So Eddington helps out and captures them, and then Tuvok comes as a civilian on Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
And and he helps them escape. And this is when Eddington does his big betrayal. And so Eddington does his big betrayal. He teams up with Tuvok, who helps Chakotay and B'Elanna get away. Cisco has an option to go after Eddington or to go after Chakotay, Tuvok, and B'Elanna. Chooses Eddington, which then ties back into the Javert thing. And then we continue it on like it was supposed to go.
I like that. Yeah. It also, if I might be so bold, it also puts Cisco more in the wrong with Eddington, which I've always been on that side, to be blunt. Cisco went way overboard with Eddington, and frankly, I don't really understand why. Which brings me to another change I would make. I would have, first of all, let's make Eddington from word go. In fact, let's make Eddington with him on the ship at Wolf 359. You remember that random Vulcan dude who was on the ship? Yeah, have that be Eddington. Have him someone he's known for years. Someone who helped him get through the post-Borg thing by helping work with him on the Borg project. Someone he insisted come with him to his new posting.
Right.
Have someone really build up and establish that relationship so that when Eddington decides to switch to the Maquis, Cisco takes it very personally and is wrong. Or I had to say that because I don't like to tell the audience what to feel. But the idea, in my opinion, would be that Cisco is in the wrong for this. He's doing this because his longtime friend didn't side with him in Blues versus Reds. Feds versus Maquis. And so then Eddington was like, no, and of course this is even added to because Cisco is actually sympathetic to the Maquis. I love his speech about, it's easy to be a saint in paradise. Everyone knows that speech. It's a good speech. And that's, he's sympathetic to the Maquis, but then Eddington actually takes that step, and then we have that question for the viewers, which they can interpret however they want. But the idea would be, is Cisco doing this because in some way he is ashamed because he was not willing to take that step and actually join the Maquis cause, whereas Eddington was?
Right. And I mean, you could, as you said, even throughout the different episodes, see it too. You just add a little dialogue here, and some things maybe where he does something that's not by the book, and that Cisco just ignores it.
Just kind of walks over it like you.
Yeah, or even create issues between Eddington and Odo, and have more Odo's like he just captured him, or I don't see how he possibly couldn't have caught on to this earlier. And Cisco's just like, whatever, that's just, these things happen.
Yeah, this is just daily operations. You think that's how things worked,
right? And yeah, I mean that would have been interesting. I actually really liked Eddington. I liked him.
I did too. He was a good actor. He was an interesting character. It's just they had no idea what to do with him, and it showed.
Right. Well, and as you said, sounds like they wanted to change him too. That he was supposed to be a changeling all along, and that moved away.
Whatever. I'm going to AFK very briefly, which means I'm trusting you with my show now.
Okay. I can entertain the troops for a little bit. What are we going to talk about? So now I have two streams. One, oh man, you guys are spitting awesome ideas right now. Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, and I think Runner is the one who taught me this, is that it's just they were backloaded. That's how Deep Space Nine and Trek really worked on their stuff. That's why Babylon 5, if you break down the beat for beat and how things go through, from a story aspect, I'd have to say I think Babylon 5 beats Deep Space Nine because they worked all of that out beforehand. He just didn't. What's my opinion on Rascals? I love Rascals. Rascals is the single-handed best Star Trek episode ever. I mean, it's excellent. So yeah, I don't know. I think when it comes to Trek writing, one of the things I'll say that seems amazing to me is that Trek, and Deep Space Nine specifically, does really well for the kind of writing and atmosphere that they're in. They really, they backloaded a lot of stuff. They changed stuff on the fly. If someone guessed something, they would try to instantly make it different. For the way that they're writing, and going back to Ira Stephen Bear, he wanted to change it infinitely. For what they were dealing with, the writing is exceptionally well done and cohesive compared. I see it looks like you're back with us.
Yeah, I was staying quiet because you're in the middle of a dialogue there. So
Yeah, I don't. I'd be curious on your opinion too, because when you look at how chaotic it is in the background for like Trek for writing and stuff, especially compared to Babylon 5 having everything planned out, it's amazing how good it is. Just randomly changing stuff, moving through. It seemed very, very chaotic.
I agree completely. I am. I mean, I could say the same about a lot of shows, including TNG, if I'm being blunt. But it is legitimately surprising to me how good DS9 is, given how little they knew what they were doing and how much they were constantly just like with everything.
And just changing it all the time. I mean, it was supposed to be like the Dominion War was 3 episodes.
Yeah, the whole. By the way, for those of you at home who don't really get this needs to be re-emphasized. Not like 3 episodes of the contiguous string continuity. No. They wanted the entire Dominion War, the whole conflict, to be wrapped up within 3 episodes.
Right. With a Starfleet loss. I don't even know how you do. What were they going to do after that?
I have no idea. Just whatever.
That made no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, that just. Anyways, yeah, it's actually amusing to me. It's horrible. The more I study television, the more I realize how horrific a job it is to work on a TV show. At least it was back in the day. Obviously, TV has changed. You know, the very format of television and the making of television has changed. But back in the day, holy crap.
Yeah, it was just interesting. I think TNG got away with it a little bit better because they were a villain of the week, so it felt like it could be a little bit easier to do that too. I think that could have been easier for them versus Deep Space Nine. I don't know. Maybe you could disagree with that, but it just if they messed up on an episode or if they had to rewrite an episode, it doesn't mess up the rest.
Yeah,
right? You don't have to have the mental break of Ducat going insane, and then that just. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's possible because he watched his daughter die, but that was just so sudden for me. It was such a drastic change of the character.
I love the differing opinions of Star Trek, and I mean that with sincerity. There's no hyperbole in that statement or sarcasm. Because my Waltz video went live, and I gave my opinion on that, and I saw a lot of people who agreed with me and a lot of people who disagreed with me, and that's just awesome. But I bring that up because I have to admit, if given the reins and given the room to discuss it, I would probably have had Ducat, as much as I hate to say this, I would probably have had Ducat die, either in the final episode of Sacrifice of Angels or in Walt, one of the two. Because his character arc was done. He had gone full circle. He had fully completed and moved and was awesome and incredible and shifted and moved, and then we turned him into the devil, which I get that was the intent. It's just...
How would you have done it? Let's say that you had to, that you were...
That I have to turn him into the devil?
That Ira comes to you and he says, you can create it any way you want to, but he has to become the avatar for the Paul Wraiths. And you have to do it... Let's even make it, let's do it like you were in an actual room. You have to do it by that episode. Oh, and that episode's coming up in 1 or 2 episodes.
That's how that usually works. Although, actually, sometimes they were a lot more ahead of that. It kind of varied. The breaking, I forget what they call it, breaking or something like that, when they sit down and they just get all the main writing staff in a room and they do what you and I are doing right now and just hash it out. So I have to do, and I keep saying the devil. I want to be very clear about this. I'm not speaking facetiously or literally, because the whole point was for him to be the avatar of evil.
Right.
You know, that archetype, the Lucifer archetype, that's exactly what they wanted from him. So what you're telling me is I have to turn him into this archetype, and I have to do it in 1 episode. So I'm already against both of these ideas. Ira, why? No, okay.
So he just lost. He saw his daughter die.
Yeah.
And now we're going to give you this episode. We have to have Cisco in it because that's a part of the contractual agreement.
Oh my God, that is true. For those of you not aware, he is in every episode. In some episodes, he's there for literally less than a minute, but he's there.
So how would you go about doing that? I remember, and you know what made it for me and what made it click was just to sidestep for a second. We had that Quark-centric episode where they're going through the Jeffries tube and they end up in operations.
They just sneak into his room and he's just sitting there like, "Can I help you?"
Yeah. Well, there's 2 things to that. First off, you're saying there's a way to get from Quarks to that deck without being noticed. That's a problem. And then his response was funny, but still made no sense. It's like that seems like a security risk if I can get from Corks to there through Jeffrey's tubes with no fight. But anyway, I'm sorry.
So, okay, one of my older rewrite ideas, which is not part of the new rewrite, was to basically swap the roles of Dukat and Kaiwin. Have him be the one who eventually redeems himself against the pirates, and have her be the one who completely embraces them.
Sure.
Now, that's a simple rewrite, because it makes total sense. I don't know why they tried to redeem Kaiwin at the last second. Remember, she was not only totally on board with the pirates and the burning of everything, but she, like, fully embraced it. And that makes perfect sense for her character, because she was never a faithful. She was a de Borgia, right?
She was killing people like season 1, episode 2, or whatever it was. She wasn't against.
Yeah, no,
assassination.
Her very first episode has her trying to assassinate a religious leader for her own political gain. That's Quinn, right there. That's so simple and easy of a choice. But anyway, so let's kind of bake that into an idea. That someone mentioned in chat. Where was it? Someone said it. Doesn't matter. Someone said it in chat. So credit to whoever that was. I would... So Cisco's there. And Cisco visits him with Kira. And Cisco is like, this sucks, and then leaves, and he's not in the rest of the episode. So, okay. Contractual obligation done. Have the episode focus around Kira and Dukat. Not in a romantic way. That was always a dumb idea. And have it be... Because there's actually a really good... Okay, hang on. I need to preface 2 things here, okay? Before I really dig into this. One of the things I've talked about a lot with regards to television productions lately, and the stuff that you guys will be seeing next year and the year after that, is connectors. You can have good characters, you can have good actors, but they are simply going to be flat if they do not have good connectors to other characters, right? Connecting points between characters is one of the most important things you can do in just about any show. Now, like TOS, right? Kirk, Bones, Spock. Those 3 all have connectors each to each other. And those connectors are different types of connectors. We have the antagonistic rivalry, which is secretly friendship. We have the long-standing friend, which we've been with forever. We have the trusted confidant, which you get the idea, right? Those connectors add to those characters. It's actually one of TOS's failings because that's it as far as connecting points between characters. Scotty, Chekhov, Sulu, and Uhura don't have any connecting points to anyone else. And that's one of the reasons their characters fall so flat, even though they're interesting characters, right? Now, why am I saying all this? Because the connecting point between Kira and Dukat has always been one of the strongest ones in the entire show, in my opinion. It's up there with Odo and Quark, I would say, or Bashir and O'Brien. That connecting point has always been very complicated and very dynamic. It's changed as time has gone on. As obviously, the former resistance fighter and the former dictator have changed to the former resistance fighter and the current resistance fighter have changed to the we both care about the same person in the same parental kind of matter, has changed to the I'm now a politician trying to make the best I can with a bad decision, and so is she, and you get the point. That connecting point is so strong. Use that. Use that as the main focus of Waltz. Make that the emphasis. So whatever. Honestly, get rid of the danger of the week. It doesn't matter. Eject it. Gone. Done. They're just chatting in the brig, and this is effectively becomes a bottle show at this point. And it's just Kira and Dukat playing off of each other. Now, I'd have to sit down and really polish the dialogue, because the dialogue would have to pop for an episode like this. But the idea for the arc of this episode is that Kira is trying to struggle with the fact that she cannot forgive him, and she is feeling guilty because she feels like she should. Because Kira's been very, very defined by her faith her whole arc, right? There's an episode, I forget which it is, where she flat out tells Cisco, if you told me to do something as the emissary, I would do it without question because you're the emissary. Like, her faith is probably 0.0 for her. So her faith tells her she should forgive Dukat and accept and try to redeem him and try to turn him into a better person. But she can't. She, the real living Bajoran woman, cannot do this. And so she finds herself struggling with that the whole episode, while Dukat is, of course, a completely broken man. He's broken mentally. He's broken emotionally. We can add a debilitation disease if you want to. We shouldn't do that. No physical disease. He's just a broken person. And the arc would be, as these two circle around each other, he starts to seem like he's getting better, and she starts to seem like she's thankful that he's getting better without her having to do anything. Thank God I don't have to touch that mess. And and I don't know how this would end, and this is where I would need to workshop this a little bit. The idea would be he gets better by becoming the Paul-Wraith avatar.
Right.
This is his redemption in his mind, not out of malice, not out of evil. This is important. This would be a broken shell of a man who is accepting redemption from the Paul-Wraiths. And we know the Paul-Wraiths can send visions. And we know they can lie through their teeth. And you already see where I'm going with this. You already see the arc intended.
I wonder, I don't know, maybe be adding too much to it, but what if you could, the beginning of the episode actually starts before, so you have the, what kind of class was it? It has the dish on top, I think it was the triangle version.
The Nebula?
Yeah, so I think it was Nebula class he was in.
Yeah.
So you have the Nebula at DS9, and I don't know how exactly we do it, but we have a discussion about how they have to transport one of the tiers of the prophets to Earth for study or for science or for something. Okay. Maybe an exchange that Bajor's doing. Right before it, the security officer gets distracted, and you have a Paul-Wraith acolyte come up and do something to it, and it goes from its white to red, and then closes it back, and the security officer comes back, has no idea. And then you tie that in with her trying to come okay with it, and she's like, maybe. So they have their discussion, they get into a big fight. He doesn't seem like he's doing good. And then all of a sudden she's like, you know what? We have an orb here. And I'm having issues with this. Why don't I bring this orb here? Open it with both of us in it. And
we'll have a vision together. I like that.
And even that, you can even if you're having issues with time, since you want to do more than just dialogue, you kind of have it as a what's it called when you show some stuff from behind the scenes or from past? You have
flashbacks.
Yeah, but it's a certain kind of show.
Oh, you're talking about clip shows.
Yeah, so you bring some clips from before. Just if that can help with dialogue or time or whatever, and then maybe even manipulate them a little bit to make them seem a little bit darker or whatever. You don't have to do that. That's just an idea. But yeah, and so when it opens, they have this thing, and it seems like it's the prophets, but it's really the Paul-Wraiths. And you work an innuendo or something like that, where they're saying something, and Kira takes it one way, but Dukat takes it the other, and you can slowly see, and she's just not realizing it till it's too late. You slowly see him become the Avatar, become corrupted, and then now she has an arc till the end of DS9 too, having to deal with the fact that she helped the Paul-Wraiths do this.
I like that. Yeah, and again, keeping that connecting point between the two of them strong, which I'm very in favor of. By the way, Imperial Star Destroyer asks, would you rewrite TOS? Yeah, this is rewriting Star Trek, dude.
Yeah.
Word one.
TOS would be a little bit harder, I think.
It's funny you say that. I think it would be easier.
I don't know. It depends. It's just if you're trying to do it with what they had at the time and the way that they wrote, I don't know. Someone asked, do you think would you make Winadami a Cornelius Fugg type in the Star Trek universe?
Ooh, that's an idea. I don't think I would, though. No. I'm already going to walk away from that. I think that would fit better for Shakar? Was that his name?
Yeah.
The Prime Minister who's referenced constantly, but actually stops showing up in season 3. And
he gets killed,
Kira, no, he doesn't.
Oh, I thought he got killed.
No, you're talking about you're talking about the religious dude. I'm talking about the Prime Minister.
Oh. Okay.
Both dated Kira, so I can understand. By the way, big changes to all of Star Trek or to all of stop trying to hook Kira up with someone. I never realized, A, how many relationships she has across DS9, and B, how often the writers said we need to hook her up with someone behind the scenes. It's a non-stop thing. What the hell? Anyways, moving on. I don't know if that's a Berman thing or just that's how executives think, or I don't know, but why? Moving on. No joke. I'm pretty sure Kira challenges Riker for romantic entanglements across the show. I'm not actually joking. It's ridiculous. Anyways, moving on. So, yeah, no, Shakar. It is Shakar. I'm right. I would have Shakar be more of a Cornelius Fudge character, who is from Harry Potter, for those of you not aware. I feel like that... Are you on your channel? Are you streaming right now?
Yeah, it's promoting yours. Is that a bad thing?
No, that's a great thing, but I don't have that chat up. I'm sorry. Anybody asking questions in the other chat, I'm not seeing it because I'm an idiot. Hang on, I'm pulling it up.
That's where those questions were coming from. I let them know I wouldn't be responding. I was just trying to promote.
There we go. I have both chats up now.
Sorry about that, man. I mentioned it.
No, it's my fault. It's my fault. No judgment. Anyways, but yeah, no, I think a Fudge type character. So Fudge, since you don't know Cornelius Fudge, do you?
I've seen all of the movies, but I don't know him.
In brief, he's the kind of character who isn't actually evil. It's more like he's complacent. He's not actually incompetent. He just is trying to maintain the status quo. He's what you'd probably think when you think of a non-evil politician. Hi, Captain Moroni. And that's Fudge, right? Someone who's just trying to do the easy and simple route, and no, just keep the head down. Voldemort's not back. He can't be back. That would be a horrible, horrible thing. And if this sounds familiar, then you've been paying attention, because this is how the Federation kind of operated earlier too, right? You know, we'll do whatever we have to maintain the treaty. That's Fudge.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I would not have Wynn be like that. Wynn needs to be pure evil. She's so perfect in that role. I
liked her as pure evil. They shouldn't. Yeah, at no point should they have made it. I like that she was pure evil, and I like that it seemed to stem from the fact that she was never able to religiously connect with the prophets, but felt like she should have, because that's the culture.
And sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've always loved the idea, this is headcanon, not canon, but I've always loved the idea that because of the fact that she eventually turns to the Pa Wraiths, that's why the prophets never are there for her. Because they know, or have already seen, that goes, and that's what causes her to be against them, which it causes... It's self-fulfilling. I love the self-fulfilling tragedy of that idea. I always have. Now, that is headcanon, not lore canon, but, you know...
I mean, it makes sense. It's exactly how they'd act too, because they have no idea how it works. Or I really feel like they don't care. I feel they're the villains, the true villains of the.
I don't really disagree. The founders. I mean, you saw how my one Bajorn character in your game was. That was just like me venting. It's like, screw the founders, or not the founders. Sorry, screw the screw the prophets. They're not as bad as the founders. I'm not sure I could think of a race as bad as the founders.
Well, you know, the only thing I don't necessarily dislike what they did with them. I would have emphasized it more, because I think, again, I think the prophets are just, they're villains because of who they are, their circumstance of their creation, and their inability to understand. And I think that'd be interesting. I wouldn't have given them, I would have said that, I would have emphasized that, and I wouldn't have given them an arc of redemption. Because like they are, I don't know that there is an arc. I don't think you can teach that to them. They just don't understand.
I would agree. Oh, I was going to actually ask you a question, consequently. Are the founders worse than the Arconians? Yes. I was going to ask a question. So we're rewriting DS9. Would you rewrite how I keep calling them the founders. I'm not doing it on purpose. Would you rewrite how the prophets function? Their nature, and I'm going somewhere with this, but I'm just going to ask you the question upright.
I don't think I would. No, and I'll tell you why. I like the idea that the prophets are not necessarily the best thing ever, and are not necessarily great gods, but in their own way they care, and regardless of that, they created people like Kira. I think Kira is one of the best religious people, like in fiction, that exists.
I would agree. She's really well done. I agree with that completely.
And I would have built that. You know, and even explored it where even though the prophets do care, they just can't care like, you know, they should. They just don't have the ability. But regardless of that, Bajor is better for it. So does it really matter if they're benevolent, malevolent gods or not? You know? And I would have had that conversation, or at least offered it.
So, real quick, I would not make the prophets divergence of the founders, Tesla. Although the idea earlier about Armus being a founder is something that I've heard several times. So here's what I would like. Okay, we're in the writing room, and we're designing this. And we could do this because we're designing Star Trek, we're front loading it so we can map this out. What I would want to do is codify the nonlinear nature of the prophets. And they keep saying that, the way they imply it in the show is that the prophets are outside of time. The problem is that makes no sense, and the more you try to write that, the less sense that makes. The idea I had here, and this is something I'm totally stealing from one of my commenters, and I'll go ahead and admit that, is make it so that they simply view time out of order. Not directly, but like puzzle piece, right? And what we could then do, if we decide that in advance, is look at the history, look at the broad strokes and the whiteboard of the show, and decide which order they see events in, and then write it relative to that.
Right.
And I think so. This is what I mean by rewriting the nature of the founders, because they don't do that in the show. They're vaguely time disconnected, and that's about it. But I would actually codify that and make that a real thing that affects things. They would reference events that haven't happened yet, or be ignorant events that have happened, and so forth and so on.
I'd also have them very.
Did I just call them the founders again? Did I seriously do that? I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
I would also have them have a belief that what happens has to happen, because they don't because they can see, and they do it in different times. They don't believe it. They don't think that it can be changed. They think that time is the way it is, and so that way they see themselves infesting Cisco's mother, and so they infest Cisco's mother because they've seen
that's how it has to happen.
Because that's the only way that it happens, because they've seen it and they don't believe. And in fact, you can even have that conversation where he's talking about the baseball game, and they're like, who would want to fashion, and why on God's green earth would you want to try to impact the future? Just let it be what it is. Don't and have that as just a piece that they'll never understand. And so, because I think Cisco was far too forgiving of the prophets for that.
Yeah.
When Cisco comes to him angry, that's just the thing he recognizes about them, that they're not evil. They just can't understand. It's going to be something they'll always disagree on. This is what we see. This is how it's going to happen. There's no use in changing it because we've seen it, So, and then it would start good conversations about, is time linear? Can you impact time, or is it something that's always set in stone?
That's something I would have to decide too, by the way. Rewriting all of Star Trek, I'd come up with the rule for time travel. Leaning towards type 1, type 2 is also acceptable. Eject type 3 entirely.
Well, the only problem you're going to have with that is that's assuming you'd get to be the writer forever and always, because they
That's true.
I don't know if you spoke. I've spoken to a couple of writers and had a couple on the channel, and they admit that, especially Voyager, if it was going to be a good story, they are not really all that concerned. They care about continuity, but they also care about keeping people fed. And keeping people fed is writing a good story that's going to get high rating. That's not the way they phrased it, but that's the way
I know. I've heard that many times before too, and that's why this is one of those wouldn't actually happen in real life, but if I get access to a holodeck, will totally be a thing kind of a situations.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that they should Babylon 5 it to a degree, especially like once you saw that you're getting TNG, once you saw that there's money to be made here, then a Bible, like you say, and these things will forever and always be this way.
Yeah.
And this is how the world of Trek works.
Now, what's really funny is some of you may know this, they did that. They actually sat down and said, okay, we're changing how warp works. We're changing how teleportation works. We're changing how the star dates. The star dates were changed when TNG became successful. Not in TNG Season 1. If you actually look at the history of star dates, there's like 5 or 6 versions of star dates that they kept changing their minds until they got to the modern approach where 1,000 equals a year. That didn't happen in the beginning of TNG. So they did kind of do that, and then they threw it out the window. As you say, they were more concerned with telling a good story and failing at. Oh, sorry, I mean telling a good story. No, I joke. I get it. I do. There is a complete difference from sitting down and having the time and effort and investment and enthusiasm versus, oh God, I need to get this script out there by 5 tonight. There's a huge gap between those two things.
Oh, and it's not just that. It's like hundreds of people. Hundreds is small. I mean, thousands of people, I think I can say, rely on this to work. rely on this show to do well so that they get paid.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they can go to other projects, but that's still kind of a time without money, right? So,
Yep.
so when you're writing a story, I really sympathize when it comes to that to a degree because people rely on the story for people to watch so that their show they keep getting paid. It's not just the writers, the execs, the actors. You have the guy behind the camera. You have the guy holding the
light,
the mic. Yeah, you have the guy. You have the people coming in. You have the food cart guy.
Mm-hmm.
If you write something that's consistent and no one watches, then basically you've ruined, not ruined, but you've given them a couple of bad weeks.
Mm-hmm. No, I like I said, that's why this is this is a non-Alan project. This is not a practical application of a show. Frankly, I would approach it like Babylon 5, which is, for those of you not aware of the specific structure, here's the exact way things should go, and then here's 2 or 3 other documents on how to make things work if things go badly. So there was the original intended timeline, if you want to call it that, and then there were, he called them trapdoors. JMS actually called them trapdoors. There were trapdoors everywhere. So, well, if we lose this actor, we can do this. Well, if this falls through, we can do this. Well, if we don't think we're getting a 5th season, we could do this, and so forth and so on.
Something I thought crazy on that, not to sidetrack, and at some point eventually I will have to get off for a little bit, but something that I thought was crazy was the main actor, I forget his name, he how he had that mental illness.
Mm-hmm. Which we didn't know about until like 5 years ago.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and here's the unfortunate thing. If you watch the first season with him in it, a lot of those episodes are what he thinks is really happening, which I wonder if JMS felt really bad about that. Or if that impacted him. Because you know what I'm talking about? Because
I do, yeah.
The illness he had, he thought people were watching him and the government was always after him and all this stuff. And then I remember, because I saw the interview and then I read a little bit about it, and then I went and watched Babylon 5 again. And there's like 3 episodes where you have the captain of Babylon 5 where people are following him. People are looking behind his back. He appears randomly in stages. How horrific for the actor would that have been to have to deal with that? He has to act, but then in his mind, he really thinks that's how the world is.
Mm-hmm. No, I feel very bad for him. Real quick, there were 2 questions I want to address before they go even further off the chats. Over in your chat, Gabriel Ferris says, would you write Ro Laren into DS9 as a direct antagonist to Kira? The reason I feel Ro is more angry, she's never very religious, but Kira is. Real quick, let me just say, before I address the rest of that, more Ro equal good. I liked Ro Laren as a character a lot. In fact, I actually think Preemptive Strike is one of the better episodes of Season 7, in my opinion. What do you think, Reloaded?
Yeah, I liked Ro. My only thing is, Ro being added, and possibly as an antagonist to Kira, yes. Ro replacing Kira, no.
No, I agree. Kira's
was the person for the job.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Actually, I had a slightly unrelated thought. I would have had Ro go over to Voyager.
That could have been interesting.
In fact, I had a vague idea, and I'm still workshopping this a little bit, but effectively replacing Chakotay's slot with Ro. Have Ro be the commander of Voyager, or the captain of Voyager. Because she works a lot better in that kind of a role, especially in that sort of a making do with what you've got survivalist kind of a mentality that Voyager should have been to begin with. And probably still have Chakotay, because I like Robert Beltran. I think he's a good character when you do him properly, but have him be shunted to a slightly different character slot, if you know what I mean. Just do something else with him and have Ro take on the captain slot.
At a minimum, I probably would have removed the Chakotay, not Kess. What was her name? She was a Cardassian.
Oh, Seska.
Chakotay Seska. I would have removed that weirdness and had it Ro Seska. I think that would have been interesting, where Ro and Seska were best friends, and then she finds out that Seska all of the time had been a Cardassian agent.
Mm-hmm.
And then have Ro go on a little bit of a self-destructive tangent, just trying to get back at Seska, putting Voyager in danger at times just to make Seska pay.
Mm-hmm.
Because they just went real weird with Seska and Chakotay, in my opinion.
Well, there's every problem with Seska, but I agree with you. Let's not get off on Voyager. I agree with you. Moving on. Like I said, I would have Ro be in Voyager, not in that. Now, someone asked you a question and paid for it, which is funny because this is also a question my chat asked as well. What about the Mirror Universe and the Kelvin timeline? Right? What do we do with that?
Well, the Calvin timeline is something different, but the Mirror Universe, oh my God, they were just having those as filler episodes. It was completely a complete disrespect of the Mirror Universe. I think I would have went drastically different with it. Not 100% sure how, but I don't like what they did with it at all.
Yeah, so to give my own answer, I would probably eject the Mirror Universe in its entirety to just remove it from existence. Now, that we would lose a couple of good episodes, including Mirror Mirror and In a Mirror Darkly. Those are both, in my opinion, legitimately good episodes. But there's other ways to do that. What, sir?
I was thinking DS9. I'm sorry. I was just saying. I was thinking DS9. When
oh no, you're right. DS9 is. I haven't seen Discovery. DS9 is where they did the Mirror Universe worst, in my opinion. And just no, thank you. But the problem with the Mirror Universe is that it has never made any sense whatsoever. So if someone walked up to me and put a gun to my head and forced me to keep the Mirror Universe, then I would say it was actually Q. It would have to be Q. It does not make any sense, no matter how else you slice it. Someone is artificially manufacturing this place to be the Mirror Universe rather than it naturally being an offshooting.
The only way the Mirror Universe makes sense, and it doesn't completely make sense at all, is that well, first off, you can just write it off as hyper time, like what they do in Parallels. But beyond that, the events change and not the people. Mm-hmm. And so the people are just naturally reflective. Now, that has some really bad connotations. But that's the only way it makes sense. They're not, because sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're meek, sometimes they're strong. They're not the opposite of their person in some instances. And so it's the same person, just in a different circumstance, is the only way to write it to make sense, in my opinion.
I would agree. And I like I said, I would just eject the whole thing, along with the Kelvin timeline, because while I actually enjoy the Kelvin movies okay-ish, especially Beyond, I rather liked Beyond, if we're rewriting all of Trek, I don't see any reason for them to exist, if that makes any sense. Just okay, boop, they're gone.
I mean, if we're doing reimagined, I don't hate them. I mean, what if someone told you, "Hey, you need to rewrite, you need to write a couple of movies, and we want to redo the original series"?
Then I shoot them.
Okay, that's it. That's the end.
Wait, hang on. I bought this just for you, by the way. I don't know if you can see my.
Hold on, let me go.
I'll hold it up for a second so you can. So what I do is I hold this up. And I would just kind of aim right at that. Okay, what was that again? About having to redo... Well, we just want to All right, and now that they're atoms, we're good.
Yeah. And everybody wins. So, I mean, but what would you do if you had to rewrite? If they're like, hey, look, we're going to do this. We're going to try to get a different... We want a different type of the original series. We know you created the original series, so
okay.
We want you to redo it.
Easy answer. So, and this is the easy answer, but it's such an obvious answer I cannot avoid picking it. Reimagining.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what Kelvin Timeline is, I think.
So I would classify Kelvin Timeline as a soft reboot because it's the same timeline. Because it's actually, excuse me, it's not the same time. It's the same setting. It is the exact same setting. Now, that's the difference between a reimagining. A reimagining does not exist within the same confines as the original. See Battlestar Galactica versus Battlestar Galactica Remake for a good example of that. Or any of the Star Trek books with the Star Trek shows, different settings at that point. So what I would do is I would make the Kelvin timeline a completely different setting and just start at the beginning and do whatever it is that we want to do at that point. I'd be like, because at that point you're dictating to me, Mr. Berman. So why don't you go and tell me what you want? I'm kidding. Berman wasn't involved in that. But whoever the executive it is, dictate to me what you want me to do, and I will try to make movies about it based on TOS. Except it's a different setting. Bajam.
I mean, they used all the same characters, though.
Yeah.
And they used... I don't know that I'll have to think about that.
Although, I would argue that they are different characters, and the reason why is because of the concept called forking. So forking, for those of you not aware of it, is when, let's say I clone Laura Loaded right now. Perfect clone, right? Now, those two individuals in that millisecond, in that instant, are the same person. However, because there is now a fork, they become different people. And the longer the time passes, the more different people they become. Right? Make sense?
Yeah.
So, because of the big change to the time, which was Kirk's birth being shoved in a different direction, the increased industrialization and militarization of Starfleet, and just the massive sea change that was that timeline change, all of those people were forks of each other. They were no longer the same people in any way that mattered. They started off that way because, remember, most of those, well, not some of those people, not Kirk, some of those people were born before the timeline shift. Like Bones, for example, was already alive before the timeline shift. Spock was already alive before the timeline shift, etc.
Right.
I don't know what point I'm making here. I'm just continuing to emphasize how this is just reimagining. I do a reimagining. Easy. Easy answer. Someone asked another question. Where was that? Oh yeah, do you think they could do the Nexus to undo Star Trek Discovery? No. I don't think they're going to undo Star Trek Discovery for that matter. And I haven't even seen the show.
Yeah. No, I don't either. All right. Unfortunately, man, I am going to have to jump off.
Yeah, no, I figured. This felt like a wind down.
Yeah, and but overall, yeah. I mean, maybe we can continue this in a couple hours when we come back on my channel.
I was going to say, so for those of you not aware, tonight we're doing something on his channel. He's deciding. I'm making him decide. But we're doing something tonight on his channel, which is at Central Standard Time.
Right. It's yeah, I don't know what we're going to be
5?
Oh, 5 p.m. Central Standard.
Okay, yeah, it's at 5, so that's 6 EST, those of you curious. And I, of course, will be doing my next thing, which is my Streamination thing right after this.
Right. Oh, so you instantly have to go into it? You're not going to get a break?
That's how I work.
That's how you do it, yo. Well, thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I hated you being here. No, I'm kidding. It was good to chat back and forth and disagree on stuff, which is always awesome. I would, about 2.5 hours ago, tuning. I wouldn't mind discussing this more in the future, but I suppose that's more of the viewers because that's their question as to whether or not they care or not.
Right. You mean doing this, what we were discussing?
Yeah, the Star Trek rewrite, man.
Yeah, let's just do that. Let's just do it.
I mean, we can do it.
Gonna do it.
Well, okay. Okay, he's decided. He's decided.
So, all right, brother. I will talk to you in a little bit.
All right, peace. I'm going to go ahead and, yep, so that's the meeting gone. So for those of you watching my stuff here, I am going to go ahead and chop off the local recording.